My name is Susan Veining Camilleri. I know it's a bit of a mouthful. Basically, Sue Camilleri is what I'm known at nowadays. I'm currently head of sales and marketing at Farsons. Out of the 40 years that I've been here, it is a very recent appointment because I only took over responsibility of sales 3 years ago. Before that, I was just head of marketing, and before that, there were quite a number of roles. But for me, the sales addition, although I've been here 40 years, is like a new career all over again. So I have 2 children. I have a daughter, Stephanie, and she's 26. She's currently reading for a PhD in drama and theatre studies in Ireland. And I have a son who's 23, is Alex. He's currently working as a full-time actor, so he's living his dream, but here in Malta. So I left sixth form, this was in the 80s, and that was the time when the education system was really in shambles here. So basically I went from getting my A-levels to straight away, I remember my father saying, "Salasek, you have to go out and find a job." So initially I started working with another company here. It was a restaurant chain, and I was just working in finance. Eventually I was made redundant, and when I was made redundant, again my dad said, "Listen, you've got to go out and find another job." And there was an advert for an accounts clerk at Farsons. I applied, I got the job, and as they say, the rest is history. So I started literally as an accounts clerk. Straight away I was just totally taken up by the environment, the brewery, the company, the products, the brands. I'm a numbers person, I love numbers, so I started in numbers. And I got into things like sales forecasting. I used to also work in management accounts. I do product costings. It means, how much does a bottle of Kinney cost, what is made up of all the components. And slowly, I became really, really absorbed. I loved my job from day one. Initially, I started studying more accounts, and I did a technician and accounts technician course. And the idea was that I would graduate as an accounting technician and move on to ACCA. When I did my accounting technician exam, I also placed very highly globally, and I remember being invited to go abroad and accept my prize. And at that time, a vacancy came out internally to move to marketing. And our managing director of the time, who's now the chairman of the company, because I was a bit of a busybody, and I was always very interested to find out more, and I used to get involved in areas that they weren't really my responsibility, but I'd go and ask questions. I was very, very curious, and they said, "You will be very good at marketing." I said, "Marketing?" I said, "I'm a numbers person." He said, No, I can see from your interest, Ali, you'll be very good at marketing." So when the vacancy came out in marketing, and I applied to move to marketing. I started by doing market research, so not much brand marketing, but market research, analysis, sales forecasting, etc. Then I went into brand management. I've done, I think, most of the brands in the company sort of as a marketing executive. I handled Kinney, Pepsi, Chisk, Carlsberg. At one point I got married in the middle of all this. But I had been here for quite a while, and I think when I got married, because I married when I was 34, I wasn't young, I think I was already a manager. So I sort of climbed through the ranks at that time as one of the only female around in management. And I have a newspaper cutting when they sort of appointed me. I think I was assistant product executive or something. It says the first female management appointee in Farsons, and this was in the late 80s. Because I wasn't young, I wanted to start a family quite quickly, and at that point I knew that I couldn't carry on with the brand management role, because I did want to reduce my hours. Because like I said, I wasn't a 23-year-old, I was close to 35, and at that point I changed job again within marketing, and I did market intelligence, so it was again research, number crunching, so going back to my number crunching roots. I carried on with reduced hours for quite a few years, so Stephanie was 2.5 when I got pregnant again. In those years I reduced my hours, always on market intelligence. There was a point again when our managing director, who's now a chairman, told me, "Sue, when are you going to come back full time? And I had a lot of plans about, no, I'll wait till my youngest is in senior school because then the long hours start, etc. And at first I was a bit hesitant, but then I knew that if I don't take it, I would lose an opportunity. So I came back to full time. Within a few months, I was appointed marketing manager, then I became head of marketing, and then 3 years ago, I had an opportunity, and I literally went and asked, listen, I want responsibility of sales too. And this took 40 years, okay? So it didn't happen overnight, it happened over a very long time, but I love it. I still come here. I should be thinking of retiring. Now I'm 61. In 3-4 years time, I should be looking at relinquishing my road, passing it on to somebody much younger. I'm not in a hurry to retire, but that is my story on my work life. It never made a difference to me either that I was very often the female, the only female in the room, in a lot of meetings, etc., etc. To be honest, I never found any form of bias because I am a female, but I also know that it is very individual related. I never felt in any way less or more than my male colleagues. I am who I am, I know what I want, I know what I'm capable for, and my if I say my gender was at that point irrelevant, okay? And it remains irrelevant to this very day. Maybe I was lucky that they recognized that there was merit in supporting me even through the years when I asked for reduced hours. I mean, I'm talking about, Steffi was born in 1995, okay? So there weren't the opportunities, love childcare, love working from home. There were no mobiles, there were no laptops. I mean, I used to do a few hours here. I relied on initially my parents to look after the children. Eventually, childcare, which you'd have to pay a lot for, it wasn't easy, so most of your pay used to go to childcare. With my second, I remember I found a babysitter for Alex through the newspaper. There was an advert. This woman who her children grew up and she was looking to look after children. I saw her, I phoned her, I went to visit her, we clicked, and 23 years later we're still in touch. But I think in terms of me being the only female for a long time, I personally never felt intimidated. It could be quite intimidating, and if I see this photo from 1991 and I'm the only female and I'm really small, so it really shows in the lineup. I'm very proud of it, but I personally never made a big deal about it. I just got on with who I am and what I do. For me, it was never a point of discussion, ever. I was a little bit, I think, a bit of a pioneer in a working mother here in Jafiri. I remember having quite a few meetings about how and reduced hours, and this was at a time when there was no structure. So almost they were experimenting with me. And it lasted for quite a few years before another female came on board at a managerial level and had children and still managed to retain the role and the seniority. And in the years that I did work reduced hours, I sort of flattened my career curve, okay? It flattened, so it did this, and then it did this, and then it did this. So when I then went back to full-time, my children were still both at school. Because I had more time, they didn't need me so much. I have to say along the way I got separated, so in the last 8 years I've been a sort of single mother, but they're grown up. I won't say they need me less, because it really hurts me to say that, and I feel less relevant, but they're independent too now. And I remember even when I was taking the decision to go back full time, my youngest was still in, I don't know what you call it now, grade 6, so he wasn't in senior school. I remember discussing it with them and they're saying, "Mom, we don't need you so much now, and anyway, won't you earn more money?" So they saw the benefit for them doing, but we had no facilities available. I mean, now there is, if you want, free childcare, if I'm not mistaken, and there are many more childcares around. Teleworking and home working is a point of no discussion. I remember being, every time I'd wake up in the morning and one of the kids was sick. Again, I'm talking 20 years ago, oh my God, what I'm going to do, and I've got this meeting, and I've got this meeting, and you can't just log on from home because we didn't have that facility. So I'd have to phone and either postpone, sometimes take a very irresponsible decision that the kids were only a bit sick, so they're well enough to go out, and maybe I'll take them to my mother. I don't think I ever sent them to school sick, but there are thoughts when, you're back to your ward, and what am I going to do? So I went through all that. To be honest, it seems a long time ago. It really seems a long time ago, and reminiscing now and thinking about it, it passes very quickly. Sometimes I used to pick them up from school, and they'd come here and they'd do their homework here. And I know they always used to be proud that they used to come into Mummy's office. The kids grew up with me talking about Farsons and the brands and Kinney and Chisk, it's everyday conversation. They're proud of my pride in my work. Not proud of me, of my pride in my work, and this is something that I try to pass on to them very much in what they do. Be proud of who you are and what you do, because very often your quality of your work depends on how proud you are of your work. Because if you're not proud of it, then it's fine for you to do things in half measures. No, I would never let anything go out in half measures. And my team, I know what when I tell them, I said, I expect perfection, because we should all aim for perfection. Because if we don't aim for perfection, who's going to do that? So this is a little bit of a philosophy that I still carry with me today. My husband of the time was very involved. My husband was Dutch, so not Maltese. So that even brought a different dimension from the traditional Maltese family unit. Very open-minded, very matter-of-fact. There wasn't this sort of mother-father, male-female role division. And he was very much hands-on, definitely. But I also have to add that the activities of the kids and all the after-school activities, etc., that very often fell on my lap for practical reasons. I won't say that there was an equal split of responsibilities. Definitely, I juggled with my time, I juggled with my career, I reduced my hours, and I have to add willingly, because by the time I had my first child, I was 35, and I had already achieved. I didn't have to continue proving myself at work. It was so natural that at that point, my family was the priority. So it was really easy for me to reduce my hours. I would never have given up my job. Never. And literally, I went back 3 months after Steffi got on reduced hours. And then I had Alex, and I went back on reduced hours literally 3 months after. And I always kept in touch. I remember even when I was on maternity leave and there's something social, I would try to attend, because that is how I was made up. For me, it was very important that I retain contact, but that was the time now for me to dedicate to my family, and I really enjoyed. I won't say it wasn't stressful at all. I remember being at meetings, and I used to do the school runs, both of them. And I remember being in meetings and they're going on and on and on. I said, school, and I find them waiting, either with, I remember all this stress, but I used to be very categoric, very methodical about it. No discussion. 1:20, I have to be at St. Dorothy's at 1:30. I'm sorry, I used to pick up my things and I used to leave, whatever it was. I think that it is almost natural that most of the pressure and the juggling falls on the mother. First of all, I think that women are better at it. For me, it's not a point of discussion. We are much better with multitasking. They can argue till they're blue in the face. They go from one to the other to the other. You can't do 3 things together. But we can multitask. At least I could multitask, and I know a lot of women can multitask. Men can't. They go from one thing to another. And I think it comes more naturally. I have to talk about the maternal instinct. If it is old-fashioned to talk about the maternal instinct, I don't know. Well, but there is a maternal instinct, and it's there for a reason. Once the children came along, they were my priority. I never compromised them for something at work. I would just find a way to make it work. I tell a lot of young mothers here, you have to be prepared to, I won't say give a little bit, you might have this perfect ideal before you sort of have your children that no, now I'll find this and childcare and this and it's all going to work, you know. But you have to be a little bit soft at the sides because things don't always go your way. So you've got to be flexible, that's number one. You have to make decisions. What do I want? Do I want childcare? Do I want my parents, or can my parents help me out? Whatever it is, you've got to find a routine that works for all of you and you have to stick to it. I have to say that it is manageable. It's hard work, it doesn't come easy. There are years, especially when the children are young, it's exhausting to me, but I did all the tutrinas and the ballet and the basketball and the football and the tennis, we've done it all. So you've got to be really, really organized, resilient, determined, I would say curious, because I think the curiosity at work is what keeps you always wanting to learn more. And I don't think you should ever be comparing yourself to other people. Find what works for you, be proud of it. If it means for a while, you know, taking a 2-year break from your career, but that is who you are and how you want to do it, fine. Don't feel in any way that you're any less than maybe your friend who's, you know, managing everything in one go. Because I think everybody has to find their way and not be in any way apologetic about it or compare yourself, you know, just like I said, really, you know, for me, this is who I am, this is how I did it. It seems to have worked in one way or another. It seems to have worked, and you know, not throwing in the towel yet, really. I hope that there are a few more years left.